Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar from Spindustry SharePoint Services. We have a very exciting webinar for you today. I think that if you are in the field of doing InfoPath, that today's webinar is just going to, one, blow your mind, but two, really solve some problems for many of our, I know it solves some problems for many of our clients. It's probably going to solve some problems for you. This is really a joint webinar between Spindustry, no-code solution for a product called Fusion we'll talk more about, and also our partners Crow Canyon Software as well. So we are super happy to be partnered with no-code and with Crow Canyon to deliver this, and we're really happy that they are our partners. And we'll talk more about them as we progress into the webinar. Today with us, we have Steen Jacobson, which is the CTO of No-Code Solution. And Steen is definitely in a different time zone than we are. So thank you, Steen, for staying up late to do this webinar with us. And we think that your part of the webinar is going to be really exciting, and we're happy that you're here. My name is Jared Edge, and I am the Director of SharePoint Services for Spindustry. And also with me, I have Tara Harms, Director of SharePoint Training for Spindustry, and also Brittany Tibbin, who's our SharePoint project manager here at Spindustry as well. So welcome, everyone.
Hello. Thank you.
All right, so let's get to it. We have a lot to cover. We're trying to focus mainly on demos today, but we do have just some preliminary groundwork to lay so that we're all on the same page as we're listening to these awesome products and demos. So let's get started. All right, so our agenda for today, we're going to just go over, do a little small overview of InfoPath. I'm not going to dive deep into what InfoPath can do, because honestly, if you don't know what InfoPath can do, you're probably not interested in what this webinar is. So if you came to this webinar, you already are working with InfoPath and you're trying to solve a problem just like we were. And then we'll talk about upgrading your InfoPath List forms, and then using Nitro forms. And also upgrading an InfoPath Forms Library using Nitro Forms. So those are two a little bit different things, and we want to kind of make that distinction here in the beginning so that we can have some meaningful demos for you. And then we're going to blow your minds, or Steen's going to blow our minds with some suggestions for migrating your InfoPath data out of those forms, whether they're list forms or whether they're, more importantly, those forms library InfoPath forms, getting those out and putting them into some other location like SharePoint List or something like that. If we have time, we'll go over some additional features of Crow Canyon's software, just to kind of give you a better idea of what they do and how robust Nitro Forms is. We really want to leave you with an impression that you could say, wow, not only can it replace all my InfoPath forms, but man, it does so much more. And so we'll get to that as well if we have some time. But we want to make sure we get to the core demos first, so bear with us, and we'll do the best we can as we go through. A lot to do here. So as you know, InfoPath is deprecated, and if you heard that several years ago, you may not have gone back, and I'm sure you don't make it your daily job to go back and look at the InfoPath deprecation notice over and over and over, but it does change. And so I left this on here for you. I'm not going to read through it, but basically, if you know that InfoPath 2013, the application itself is the last iteration of that. They're not going to do a new one. And you know that they're still going to support this for the time being. I think they kind of removed the hard cutoff of 8 years that you have, so it's going to linger a little bit longer. But you do know that it is being removed, and everyone else is. If you're still on 2010 and you got InfoPath Forms, or 2013 and you're using InfoPath Forms, you know that you need to replace them. That's why you're here, and that's why you're watching this demo. So just keep that in mind. And there's some, when 2016 came out, they said, oh yeah, it will be supported in 2016, but they have been very careful to say that they're not going to support it in 2019. So be a little bit careful there. Get it done now. So let's talk InfoPath. So InfoPath has three types of forms, really, if you think about it. If you were creating just a regular SharePoint list, and you were going in and you thought, my gosh, I don't like the way this list form is. I'd really like to redecorate it, maybe add some tabs or page this if I could, or rearrange the order, or make some things required on the fly, put some rules around it. Then if it was just a SharePoint list, you could create a SharePoint list form in InfoPath. You could use InfoPath to redecorate that form. And it kind of looked like the image that you see on the right-hand side there. But then, if you were doing an InfoPath Forms Library, that was a little bit different. So that's the second iteration of the way InfoPath works. And what that is really, you guys all know that there's XML behind these InfoPath forms, but really all your data was stored in that XML document and then placed inside of a library called a Forms Library. And that's the only thing you really put inside of Forms Libraries. And it allowed you to do more functionality. And we'll talk about that in just a second. The other portion of InfoPath was if you were using SharePoint Designer 2010 workflows, you could have that form be generated as a InfoPath form as well. And we're not really going to talk about that at all because you're probably not using SharePoint Designer 2010. We still do in certain clients, but the replacement for that really, I think, going down the road is probably going to be Microsoft Flow. And so you're not going to have the problem with the InfoPath forms on workflows. So we're not going to talk about that at all. All right, so those are our three places. And so that's just to refresh your memory. And like I said, I'm sure all of you already know that because you wouldn't be here if you weren't really thinking about or working with InfoPath in the past. So let's kind of broaden that out just a little bit. So in those list forms, just a couple of key features. And now I'm mentioning these key features because I want to show you how InfoPath, how Nitro Forms can replace these features and actually maybe even do a better job of it than InfoPath did. So we're gonna talk about that. So some of the things that InfoPath Forms could do, you could do connections to the InfoPath via the ribbon. So you would go to a list on the ribbon in SharePoint, you could click an icon and it would take you to InfoPath and open up that particular list form and you could go through and edit it. We're gonna show you that Nitro can still do that for you so you still have that ease of use. Drag and drop columns, so I could drag and drop columns from that right-hand side in the editor over into my form, and it would put some things on there. Make it really easy for a power user to go through and create a form very quickly, and that's what we want to keep as well. So you could publish this list form, so it stayed there, and no one else could see it until you publish the form. Now it's all good. You could add data connections. You could add views of the forms, or you could interact with the forms individually. So your edit form might be slightly different than your display form. So that was kind of cool. And then you could add rules as well. So like validation rules or formatting rules or actions could be added inside of there. And those were also fairly simple. And it did have some other robust features where you could go in and write code behind the scenes, but you kind of had to be like a VBA developer or C# developer or one of those types of things to kind of get into that and do some things there. But for the most part, just for the SharePoint list, no one ever did code behind those or anything like that. We just did these simple things to make our list look better. So you also might remember those InfoPath styles that were there. Those are wonderful as well. So for SharePoint Forms Library, so again, you go in, you create a Forms Library, and in that Forms Library, you could put several templates, one or more templates inside of there, and they were XML forms. They were InfoPath forms, which are just XML behind the scenes. And the things that were special about that, I guess, is that it was kind of one of the only ways at the time to create this repeating table. So for example, this picture shows a shipping order with details in it. So the top part is, basic static data, name, address, city, and country. But then I wanted multiple lines. I might one of my InfoPath forms might have 1 order details, another one might have 7, and so forth. But all of that data is trapped inside of that XML inside of that InfoPath form. And so we're going to talk about, how do I recreate this in a better way? And I think we would all agree that a better way would just be to have a separate list to hold the details of that order, and then we would connect the two lists together in a meaningful way. And so we're going to kind of show you how that's done as well. So those are some of the things that our InfoPath would do for us, okay? So what do I do now that InfoPath is going to be gone? Where do I go? So if I'm still on SharePoint 2010 or 2013 and I constantly use this InfoPath, what do I do? And I also want to bring up a couple of things as well, like what if I need to convert all this, but we're still actively using InfoPath in our environment? Okay, so how do I make sure that they can continue to work while I'm doing the transformation over into a new environment? How do I work all of that out? And we think we have some solutions for you today. So the first thing that we would say is you need a way to present forms. You want to be able to work with it as easy or even easier than you did inside of InfoPath. So where would I go? And of course, we're saying you're going to go into Nitro Forms, and which is a product of Crow Canyon software. Okay, and we are a partner for Crow Canyon, and we just think it's been a great experience so far. What do you guys think?
Yeah, everyone at Spindustry is really excited to partner with Crow Canyon. They've been a great partner with us, and we are excited about all the things that they offer.
Yep, and we're always happy when they're on a call with our client. They treat our clients so well and provide excellent customer service and are just very knowledgeable in what they do and what they offer.
Yeah, and it's really cool because they have a lot of out-of-the-box products, which I'll give you kind of maybe a summary of that at the end. They have a bunch of out-of-the-box products that are built on top of Nitro Forms. So it's not like they just built a forms editor or a nice replacement for InfoPath. That's not what they did. They build products out of this, and through that, they've enriched what the Nitro Forms can do to make it such an easy to use and awesome product. And we really like it. So we're showing it to you because we think that this is a valid replacement for InfoPath. And then once you have that valid replacement for InfoPath, you'll find that you can do so much more on top of that you'll just love it. And so there's a couple of things that you hear in this overview slide that it does. And you can read those for yourself. I won't go through them. I'm going to actually show you in a demo. So I think that'll be kind of cool. So some things we're going to show here in the demo is how easy it is to take a normal form, a SharePoint list form, and just click one button, and now I've transformed it into a Nitro form. And then I can do things like drag and drop my columns out onto my form, rearrange them in any order that I want to. I can publish this when I'm ready to publish it. And then even if I have to make additional changes to it later, so it's a live form, but I need to make changes, I can make those changes and then publish it when it's ready. And I think that's always good. But we'll look at the designer interface and see all the different things that we can do inside of there. And then we'll also talk about how to do multiple forms as well. So I could separate, my display form looks one way, my edit form looks another way, and so forth. And then we'll also talk about, and I'll show you a demo of unique permissions for not just tabs, but for columns as well. And I think these are just some really exciting things, and I'm happy to show them to you. Then I'm going to do a second demo, which will take into consideration things like the repeating tables. And so I'll show you how we do linked items and associated items inside of that demo. So I think with that, you'll see that we've replaced basically all of the InfoPath things that it could do. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do a demo of Nitro Studio. Give me a second here to switch over. All right. So again, Crow Canyon software, definitely give them props for what they've placed into this application. I think when you guys see it, you're going to be just what lovely. I showed you this screen right here because I was wondering if everyone's out there having fun with all the new features of Office 365. All the special stuff that's happening over the last week, where we have different cogs, we have a longer logo that we can put in here, and the new UI and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys are all happy with that. I called Bill Gates and said, hey man, could you get me a longer logo here? And he said, yeah, I'll do that for you. So we worked it all out. So let's take a look at some of the things that Nitro can do. Now, before I get into my demo on creating an actual form, just to give you an overview of all the things that Crow Canyon has placed into this, and it's just amazing amount of work that they've done. So Nitro Forms, and basically all the products, everything you're going to see is Nitro Forms that I'm going to show you today, but even their products that they build, like help desk systems and ticketing systems, project management systems, all those are built on top of Nitro Forms, and you have the Nitro workflows piece. So if you're thinking, gosh, I'm okay with Flow, but Flow doesn't do everything that I needed to do. I'm okay with SharePoint Designer 2013 and 2010 workflows, but they don't do everything I need to do, or maybe they're a little hard for me to use. Then you want to look at Nitro workflows as well, because awesome stuff. Reports, so it's fantastic for giving you reports, charts, and all those great, wonderful things. They even have a portal to make it easier for your employees to go through and find what they're looking for, like find the right ticketing system and find the right, project and all those types of things. But so much more. They've even invested time in bots as well. So they have an AI service built in. So for example, in their IT help desk, You can go in and just a bot will pop up and you can type in what you're looking for, and the bot will walk you through what you need to do and how you need to do it, or even find a previous case that solved your problem. And it's just really, really cool stuff. But I want you to note, inside of your Nitro forms, you could do advanced lookups. You can even do approvals. You can do cascading lookups, which is an awesome feature. I don't have time to show all these, so I'm going to sum it up this way. You can do conditional formatting on the forms. You can even put custom actions in there, so that's just awesome. You know, and then in addition to that, printing, email, list rollups, all those other things. So very, very exciting. A lot to show you. It would take all day to show you all of that, so I'm not going to do that. So let's get into my demo. So let's say I have this beautiful contacts form, which hopefully will show up for me. And in my contacts form, and I think everyone probably has created a contacts form at some point in time. Let's get that to refresh there. Everyone's created a contacts form at some point in time, and you look at it and you think, my gosh, this list is super, super long when someone goes to fill in a form. So here's kind of what it looks like out of the box. Now it refreshes for me, great. I shouldn't have said anything about the new features of Office 365. Bill Gates heard me and didn't like my joke. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, come on, buddy. One more try. There we go. All right, so if you're going through and taking a look at a contact form, and I think it's going to refresh one more time for me. That's just great. This is a true Bill Gates moment, like where you're sitting there on stage in front of 5,000 people, and all of a sudden you get the blue screen of death. Yeah, wonderful. Technology. I haven't even added anything to it yet. This is just out of the box, Office 365 SharePoint working for you there. So anyway, if you go to look at a contacts form, and you click the new item button, and I was going to show these in the new UI, and I just want to mention that. So new UI works, Crocanyon's software works in new UI and in classic UI. I actually picked classic UI today because the pages load faster, which is not actually happening right at this second. So, so this is a typical form that you would see. It's very, very long. This is out of the box SharePoint. So I kind of don't want it this way. I'd kind of like it to have, you know, the title, which in this case actually is last name and first name, and on a tab, I'd like to have the email address on that tab. I maybe want to put the phone numbers all on their own tab. I want to split this up to make it just more usable and more in-user friendly. So we're going to do that right now. Oh, I can't believe I clicked that. There we go. All right, so in InfoPath, what I would normally do is go to the ribbon, and I click on the InfoPath icon, and that icon would open up InfoPath for me. So we're saying that we have the very similar experience for that same thing. So I assume my page, there you go. So I'll go here to the ribbon, and on the new UI, it's basically in the what we call the new ribbon, or the new taskbar that's sitting there. But I'll see Nitro Forms here. And I'm just going to click on that one button, and it's going to go ahead and open up Nitro Forms for me. And you'll see across the top there's several other things, so email manager, the custom actions, and a few other things that are there as well. Printing, all those things are sitting there on your ribbon. And I apologize for the speed of this. It was running just wonderfully a little while ago, and now we're slowing down, but that's okay. I will say that our Office 365 environment over the last week, and you may have noticed this as well for your first ring, has been really sluggish because of all the updates and changes that have been being made behind the scenes. But that is also okay. We'll make it through it. So we're working on it. It's opening up our Nitro form, our Nitro version of everything. And I'm going to walk you through some of the things that you can do with this beautiful environment. All righty. So the first thing it says is, hey, Jared, I'm going to create this into a Nitro form for you, but do you want to have the same look for the new edit and display form, or do you want to separate that and do one look for the new, one look for the edit, and one look for display? I think that's awesome to be able to do. We're just going to keep all three the same just for keeping it brief. All right, so I come in and I have this middle section which I'm going to concentrate on, so just hold off on that for just a second, and we're going to go over this left-hand side real quick. So in the left-hand side, I can do several things, like I can switch the look and feel of this just like you could do with InfoPath. You could go through and pick a different look and feel for it. And so I can do that here. We have several built-in brandings, but you can have your own custom brandings in there as well, and then they would show up inside of this list. I can dictate that I want to use tabs or sections, so you get to choose which one you want. These are drop downs now. You've seen those kind of in like Bootstrap and those type of things. I can choose when it has the column name on here, do I want the display name, or do I want the description, or do I want both? And that is really cool. You can also choose to hide the buttons that are here, the save buttons, the edit buttons, and all of those things, and even hide the print button from like the ribbon. And then further down, you can do things like, you know, what do I want to specifically do with certain buttons? How wide do I want the form to be? It defaults to like 850. You know, so very, very nice things that you can do. Do you want to hide the Nitro from the ribbon or not? So that's the first section. The second section is all about my form controls. Getting them, dragging and dropping them out onto the form. I'm going to do that in just a second, so hold off on that. But then also here I have actions that can be performed. So here's some really cool things. I can put script inside of here. So I can put JavaScript inside of here to make it richer, make it do things that I want. You know, I can put a submit action in here. What should it do when someone clicks submit? And I can put custom actions which show up on like the ribbon, and I can click to say email out someone a notification that all this happened. So those are really, really nice features that you can have. You don't have those, you know, you don't have that robust ability to put in JavaScript over inside of your InfoPath forms. Then you can do some advanced stuff or some different things like autofill settings, which is really cool. Like if you have a lookup that goes out and finds something in another list or library, you can have that one key value, but then when it brings it back over, you can have it fill in other fields inside of this list. Instead of the way lookups normally work when you're working with, say, out-of-the-box SharePoint, you can have it do a lookup and it also attaches the other columns from the other list. But here you can actually have it grab that data and place it into a field that's inside of this list. So a slight distinction, but a very valuable one. I really like that feature. You can do lookups, you can do associated items, which I'm going to show you in my next demo. You can do external data columns, and you can do signatures as well. So you can have that electronic signature on it, like they're on an iPad, you can have it pop up and they can sign with their finger and then boom, done. Very, very nice things. And then under advanced, you can do custom JavaScript in addition to the other script that you can do. You can do custom CSS. You can even do form events. That's really, really nice. And then you can do column permissions as well, so column level permissions. That's something that SharePoint does out of the box, but a lot of people don't actually use. So I'm going to go back here to the form controls and start adding some items to my tabs here inside of the middle. So the first thing is I get tabs, and I kind of like to break my form up into maybe 3 or 4 different parts. So I'll just grab a tab here, pull it over, drag and drop. Oh my goodness, Jared, that was awesome. Can you do it again? Yes. I'm going to grab another one, drag, drop, boom. This is absolutely outstanding because now there are other products out there. You know, InfoWise is one, DFFS is another, and I have nothing against those products. I actually like those products, but none of them can I drag and drop fields like this. This is insane. So I really like it a lot. I'll show you an example of the line and adding HTML, so you can add additional HTML in here as well. I'll show you that in just a second. So let's just say that I'm going to go here to these tabs now, and I'm going to go through and change the meaning or change the information on here. So this tab, instead of being called default, will be contact info. Okay, and then maybe my next tab here might be all their phone number. Oops, I did a boo-boo. Contact info. Always remember to hit the apply button. Contact info, apply. Awesome. And I'll go here to my next tab and I'll go ahead and rename it. Maybe this is all their contact information, this is their phone information. There we go. Okay, and you'll notice that it's asking me the number of columns that I want and things like that. I'll give you an example of that in just a second. Over here, maybe we want some miscellaneous information. All right, and then maybe we'll add something else as we go along. But inside of this now, I have how many columns do you want? And then also, you know, do you want the label position to be horizontal or vertical? And then you also have, you could create a difference between how it looks on the desktop and how it looks in a tablet or a mobile device. Oh my goodness, that is awesome. Okay, in addition to that, I can set up permissions for these tabs. So I have an example of that in a later demo, so I'll hold off on that. So let's decorate this particular tab. Okay, so on it, I want title, which that actually is the last name column. I'm not sure why it says title, but that's okay. Okay, and I'll grab over the first name. And so I'm just dragging and dropping these onto the form, which is absolutely incredible and exciting. Pull that over, got the company name, and I think we need their job title as well on here, and maybe even their email address, just so I don't have to go to another tab to look for their email address, because I like to email these people a lot. So I've got all that in there. Notice that title is the only thing, which again is last name. Title is the only thing that is marked as required. However, I could go to first name, and so in the list, I could go back to the list settings and actually make it required. You can do that, or you can just do it from here. And the thing about doing it from here, so I'll just go over here and mark this one as required and apply it. So now you see the little red mark there. The thing about doing it from here is because I can make decisions here. I could say that if you are in group A, then these fields are required for you. If you're in group B, these fields are required for you. Or it could be that on the new form, all I have is basic information. Just give me their first name, last name, and their email address at a minimum. And then we save that. And then when we come back to so our employee goes out and does the vetting of this particular client, so they go out and find more information about them. When they come back in and they go to add the phone tab, so I may not even show the phone tab on the new, but when they come back to add in the phone information, they'll see that there. And then when they click on phone for the tab, I could say, oh, these 3 fields inside of the phone are required. So maybe I have to have at least a work phone for them after we vetted them. So I can do some pretty cool things inside of here. So I'm watching my time here and I'm going through and I'm adding information in. So I'm going to just switch over to like a final version of this to show you kind of what it looks like. So here's my other form. And I'll show you all the pieces that I did. And you'll also notice that this is going to open up as a dialog box, because you can do that. You can have it open up as a modern UI, you can have it open up as a classic UI, or you can have it open up as a dialog box. There we go. All right, and again, sorry for the speed of everything today. I'm not sure what's going on. However, there's my contact tab. I've got all this information. These 3 fields are required. There's address, got it all separated. Here's, and nice little controls as well. So nice modern controls, so they can go ahead and grab it and extend it out if they need to. Phone numbers, I have all that separated. I've got my additional info over here with a rich text box. I even added some HTML to this form so that I could put in here some additional instructions. I was able to put a line inside of here and just regular HTML to kind of draw this portion out, make it bold a little bit, and then put some additional information down here at the bottom. These are really, really cool things, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, okay? So I have a few minutes left. Let me go ahead and jump into a slightly different demo with this, okay? So I have 3 forms. Okay, 3 lists inside of SharePoint. One is called marketing items, and it's just a straight list. It has title and has a price, and these are things that could be ordered by anyone in our sales team and who are in their sales offices throughout the country. So they can order name tags, glass door signs, all these different types of things, business cards and such. So this is the list of things that they could order. I have another list inside of SharePoint that is called marketing orders, and this actually is going to behind the scenes hold on to all of the orders that have actually been made. So all of the actual details for everything. So you're looking at it as this is all of them, but we're going to have it so that you can see just one for one form. We'll see that in just a second. But I want to mention something about this. I do have a lookup on this, and I made that lookup with Nitro instead of with SharePoint. So you can still connect it. If you already have a list out there that has a lookup to another list, that's still fine. Nitro can leverage that. But what I did was do some special things here, because this is one of the most annoying things inside of SharePoint for everyone, and that is to be working on a list, filling in information, and then as you're filling in that information, you realize, oh, I need the URL for this, or oh, I need to add that document over into another library, or oh, I need another piece of the puzzle. So you end up canceling here, going out, doing the other thing, and then coming back over here to finish off your job. Well, here, my employees, for example, I just put this in here. It doesn't make sense in our scenario, but it does make sense as a good example. So here are the items. So I see these as I look. Those are all the items that were in that other list. Okay, I'm doing a couple of things with this. So let me just go ahead and grab one. I added business cards. I had it go and grab the amount that was with it and fill in a field inside of this list that doesn't exist in the other list, okay? And I had it here, and I made this read only so no one can change the actual price here. And then they can go in and say, oh, I'd like 2 of those, and then they could save. But here's another feature of this that while I'm showing you things, one, they could search for it. So if I have a list of, say, 100 or 200 items in there, they can click this to search. But a better thing is to add a new item from here, which is totally awesome. I click the Add New button, and it pops up the actual other form. So it also had to be a Nitro form, so I created it that way. And so I could go ahead and create a new item. Now, in our scenario, that doesn't make sense, but in real life, that's an awesome thing to be able to do. Okay, so let me go ahead and cancel that. All right, so this is the middle of the forms that I have here. So this is what it looks like. Now, that's 2 of the forms. The third form itself is actually my marketing form. So a user would come to here, and they would see this form. I just have a link to it on our homepage or something like that. And they would click new item, or they would just click on a link and it'd open up the new item. And then they're going to be able to go in here and enter some information and then order as many items as they want. So this is the equivalent of me doing a master details form over in InfoPath with those repeating sections, those repeating tables that are inside of InfoPath. So this is really, really nice to be able to do. So I went ahead, because I have tabs, and split it up, but I could go in and say this is the Terra order. Okay, and 4 is just a people picker. So I'll go in here and find Terra. Come on, you can do it. We're almost done. Still running slow. There we go. Terra, grab that. Okay, location code. She's out at CC. That's her location. Put a prior on it. She's going to go ahead and she's going to get that shipped to her in 7 days. But then I can come over here to my orders, and there's no orders in here yet. But all this is an associated list. So I have associated that details section, that repeating table section that I normally would have in InfoPath, and I have associated to this list, and now I can add new items here. So what's my next order, the thing that I want to order? And you'll see my order form pops up, and I can just go ahead and make a selection inside of here. Here it comes. There you go. This is what you saw just a few seconds ago. There's the business cards, $9.99. She needs 2 packs of those. She'll save. And that puts it right back inside of here and remembers that it's with this specific request and no other request. And that completes what we're doing. That's what replaces that InfoPath Forms library. So the question after that then would be, okay, Jared, so you've shown me how to recreate the forms for that. That's fantastic. But how do I get all that existing information that's in all those InfoPath forms that I have? How do I get that out and bring them over into the SharePoint environment inside of List, okay? And for that, we think we have a solution for you as well. So you could manually do all of that by hand, yikes. Or you could extract that data from those InfoPath forms and bring it over into SharePoint using Fusion from No Code Solution. And I'm going to introduce Steen Jacobson. He's the CTO of No Code Solution, and I want to just turn over everything to him and let him take us through this.
Thank you, Jared.
Welcome, Steen.
Thank you, Jared. You guys see my screen now? I am in Copenhagen, and it's dark outside, actually. Now, I am with No Code Solution, and we make, like the name says, No Code Solutions for SharePoint. And what I'm going to show you today is how to get your data out of InfoPath into SharePoint lists and libraries. Notice that I said libraries as well, because we can also get the binaries, pictures and stuff out of the InfoPath forms. Now, this is a typical InfoPath timesheet form. It's got repeating table. It's got information about the employee and some information about the time being used for different projects. Now, how do I get that into SharePoint, right? So this is the internal representation of that data. As many of you probably know, this is what gets stored inside the forms library, inside those XML files. And this is even a simple one. Now, how do I get that into SharePoint, right? And then wait a few seconds, think about that. Okay, so this is the visual representation of the form on your right-hand side now, and on your left-hand side it's the actual data. So those two bits and pieces of data makes up the employee information, right? There's an employee name and the year and the week and so on, and all the totals for how many hours have been spent on this and that project. Now, that we would like to go into a SharePoint list. In my example, I just called it timesheet week, right? So I can get Arno in there and I can get week number 9 and the different hours he spent. Now, that was one part of it. The second part of it is the hours being spent. Notice there are 4 different rows here. This is one of them, and there are repeating tables. So there's another one here, another one here, another one here. And I would like that to go into, as you can see, that represents the area of the form where you have the repeating table. Now, wouldn't it be nice to have that transformed into a SharePoint list, a plain SharePoint list that you have control on? So, InfoPath, with its form data, you can now take back control of your data and get it into SharePoint, right? In ordinary lists that you can reuse in Nitro Forms or other form solutions. So, showtime. Let's go to it. Let me get rid of this. And let's go into Fusion. Now, this is Fusion, but before we dive into that, let's just set the scene. This is an InfoPath, typical InfoPath site, right? It's really, really simple, and it creates my timesheet, and I can fill in the week and the hours I spend on the different projects and so on. Now, everybody in this room knows about that, and you also probably know that the filled-in form ends up as an XML document within a forms library, right? The one we just saw, and I got one of them right here. Right? So this is the how it looks, and this is the data that we need to get out of there and get it into SharePoint so that we can use it and we can push it to Power BI and Excel and all that. Now, so let's just have a look at it. You can see we got the hours here, and you can see the hours are repeating themselves, and we got the employee name here. Okay. Now, for this demo, I created a SharePoint site in a different tenant. Notice that this one is in one tenant and this is in a different tenant. So Fusion supports as many tenants, as many platforms as you like, including 20, 27, 10, 13, 16, 19 even, and obviously 365. So I'm going to convert these data inside this ugly XML document and extract it and put it into to a list, right? And let's go have a look at how that is done. And we will see it happen in a few seconds, not a few seconds, in a few minutes. So let's dive right into where the action is. So let's go ahead and have a look at how to extract the header of the form, that meaning the name and the hours. And you can see this is the XML document, and we got the name here, and further down we got the totals. Notice this, right? This is how the InfoPath form is rendering itself. It's just completely unable to read this, right? Now, so let's go ahead and have a look at how that's done. This is the SharePoint list timesheet week I created. And it's got here timesheet week, right? It's got the title and the week and the totals and stuff. So what we do then, let's have a look at the hours for Friday. So we simply go in and set up a rule, and we say, okay, we want this tag from the document from Friday. And if we look at Friday on the totals here, we got the total Friday here, like this. And that is simply the way you do it. You just set up a rule for each of the columns that you want to extract. You can even combine them. You can even do calculations. You can do calculations across the different columns. And you know, it's just an endless story. So I better not go down that street. So basically what I did, I'm just pointing to the different columns within my XML document, and then I'm piping them into whatever column I would like them to go into SharePoint, right? So this is how it's done for the header information. Let's have a look at the repeating tables. This is where it gets really, really exciting, right? Because then you have multiple different sections that you want to pass We got one for each project. You can see this is a project for one thing and a project for a different thing. And we want this to be extracted. So basically what Fusion does is it extracts each of those, right? And converts it into sensible data that we can use. So, okay, let's go ahead and have a look at how it works then. So basically, we can just open the main component that does it. And maybe I forgot to say, but I'll say it anyway now. This is all done with zero coding and no coding, no PowerShell, no C#, no nothing of that kind of thing. So basically what we have here is basically a bunch of components I put together. And the first component is getting a list of the files that we want to process. And the second one is actually downloading the XML document from the library to a local storage. And the two last ones are just processing the header information and the details information, right? So if we just go ahead and run this interactively step by step, I'll show you what it gets. And you can see these are the three documents I've got in my forms library, right? My forms library, got it right here. So this is a forms library. And so I just retrieve those. And the next step will be to actually run it. So I'll just take two of them and then take the third one later on. And I just say run. Now, while this is running, let's just go and have it actually pop in there. So this is the timesheet week that is being filled out with data from the extracted data from the XML documents. And here we go. This is Sten Jacobsen. This is actually me. And now it's processing the details for that. And we can see I even created a link to the details. So I can actually click to the details here. And I got the details for Sten's hours, this and that, and these were the hours, right? So we go back to timesheet. I can see now I got everything in place, and it's all complete. Now, this is actually the core of things, and I just want to mention that this does not necessarily have to be something that I run by pushing a button and selecting some things in here. This is just something I'm doing to show you how it works. And to extract some of them. This can obviously also run as a scheduled job, and you can schedule that job to run every day or every other day, every Monday, or whatever, and it even runs incrementally. Well, guys, I can talk about that for a long time, and I get really excited every time I start. So I think I'll hit the pause button. And Jared, do you have a comment?
So I want to mention just a couple of things, because I mean, first of all, this is super exciting, and this is really a good solution. I mean, you are going out, grabbing information out of the InfoPath documents, bringing it over, staging it inside of SharePoint, and that is incredible, and that's something that we haven't seen yet. There are some solutions out there that can move data, but what you're doing is, but most of those solutions, especially where SharePoint is involved, most of those solutions cannot read XML documents, and Fusion does. And I think that's a big thing to point out. But I think also something that's important to point out is that you mentioned, but just briefly went over it, and you said this can be done incrementally, which simply means they could still be in their old system working because you haven't trained anyone on the new system yet. You could do the transformation of all the different data that's in there, but as Fusion is smart enough to be able to go back and say, where did I leave off, or what's been changed, and then grab the new data and bring it over. And Fusion has that capability plus many more capabilities. So I would like it if you just took a couple seconds to kind of just give us a little bit bigger overview of what Fusion does. Is that cool?
Wow, that's cool. But if I start on that one, we never finish. Well, yeah, I haven't prepared any slides for that. But basically, Fusion is it's a completely different breed of integration tools or migration tools or data transformation tools that you will expect. And it's specifically designed for SharePoint. It supports all versions of SharePoint, and it can get data out of just about anything you have, and it can get data around just about anything you have. So the demo that I just did now, I just extracted the data from an XML document and created items in SharePoint. I could also extract data from lists and libraries in different platforms of SharePoint from 27, for instance, and combine them with something from 2010, and upload the final thing to 365. And I can do tons of different data transformations. And like I briefly mentioned, you can actually, with the data that you extract from the InfoPath form, you can do calculations on that. So I could actually take, if it happened that I hadn't got a totals column for the hours, I could actually add those numbers together and do that in the transition, in the data transport. Yeah, I just want to quickly touch on that incremental thing.
And you can do all of that with no code.
No code whatsoever. That's my middle name. You know, I just no code, right? No code is just a waste of time creating black box programs and having somebody to do that, and it never ever works the first time, and it's just about impossible to maintain. So that is the keyword, and Fusion is built from the ground up, from day one, from line one, with that single purpose. That was before the no code wave, so to speak, started. So yes, with no code. And yeah,
that's absolutely amazing, first of all. But I just want to say that, you know, we've been talking about how it connects to SharePoint, but with our clients, we have used Fusion to connect to Oracle databases, SQL Server databases, and external, really customized external data. And we have been able to pull that over and reinvent things inside of SharePoint using Fusion. I mean, and it's been incredible. It's actually been incredible. One of the other things that I'll just mention, because you are moving your InfoPath information out of SharePoint, and some of that InfoPath information was really InfoPath documents. So it's possible that you're going to end up having new documents inside of your new environment, and not to mention some of the binary data that was connected to it. So one of the things that we use Fusion for, and if you want to talk more about this, you can, but you don't have to. But one of the things we use Fusion for with almost every single client that we have is moving their data out of things like shared drives or other places in SharePoint that have bad document hygiene, and moving them to a better place inside of SharePoint. But what we do as we move it in is we not only can pick it up and move it into a SharePoint library, but we can assign metadata to it on the way in. We can assign content types to it on the way in, and then we can synchronize it after the fact to make sure that people are able to work in the old environment and the new environment at the same time. And we could not find another product that would do all of that for us, including and especially reading XML, the reading of XML documents. We couldn't find anyone that could do that for us. And certainly, I think if we had found someone, I think the price point for that tool would have been way higher than what it is for Fusion. So, and then I'll mention one more thing about Steam. This is just for our audience to know.
Yep.
Fusion's been around for quite a while, but here's one of the things that we like as a partner. At Spindustry, we are known for pushing any tool to its max. If it can do it, we've probably used it for that. And
yeah.
Anytime that we've run into an issue where we didn't know how to do a particular thing with Fusion, or we said, hey, we found this and we think it should work a different way, literally, we send an email to Steen, and within a day or two, he gives us a pre-release version of here's the new way it'll work. And that is phenomenal. No one reacts that way to us as far as partners. So actually, CroCanyon and Fusion both do that similar thing for us. So it's amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. So, all right. So, Steen, is there anything else you want to kind of give us? Anything else you want to show us about Fusion while we have you there?
No, I think that'll confuse the picture. But I just want to mention that the range of the applications that Fusion does for people is huge. Maybe one thing I want to mention is one of my very large clients in Australia. They're doing cherry picking of files from a custom designed content management system. They have the files in a file share, and they have the metadata for those files in a SQL server. And they have versions on it. And what they're doing with Fusion is that they're reading the SQL server based on some criteria that they have. And those documents that needs to go into different locations within different platforms of SharePoint that includes 2013 and 365 at the same time, Fusion is distributing the files across the different libraries with metadata explicitly retrieved from SQL Server and converted into lookups and managed metadata. But anyone, attempting to do that will look at like 10,000, 50,000 lines of code before you can do it. And that's the kind of thing, in the extreme that people do with Fusion. Yeah, I just want to mention that because that kind of sets the scene for what you really can do. So what I've done for you today is it's just a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. So they went from 50,000 lines of code or 10,000 lines of code down to no code solution.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. So let me go ahead and kind of wrap up where we are. A second there. And so we've shown you several things today. We've shown you how to recreate forms in a very simple way, very similar possibly to how you did it with InfoPath, but easier and more robust than InfoPath. And we've shown you how to extract data out of your InfoPath documents that you had, your InfoPath forms, and then allow you to add that information into lists and libraries, and then take advantage of it, and then continue on a normal SharePoint journey after that versus dealing with something that's deprecated. So that's really cool. So if you are, we hit the tip of the iceberg with both of these products. Nitro, like I said, Crocanyon software has built many things on top of the Nitro platform, and so they have things like help desk, asset management, customer support modules, work order management, equipment tracking, onboarding, HR requests. So if you're looking for kind of a HRIS system and your organization's small enough to where you don't want to maybe invest in one of those $50,000 a year ones, then certainly this is a viable solution for that. Request management, contract management, and then purchasing. A great set of people over at Crocanyon. We love them. We love being partnered with them. They are awesome. If you would like a demo of any of that type of stuff, then you can contact Tara. I'll show her information here in just a second. If you are interested in a more of a Fusion demo, let us know and we will connect you and get a demo for you. If you have certain scenarios where you're wondering, well, could Fusion handle this for me? Certainly email us and we will get those answers back to you to show you how it could be done. We have a lot of faith in both of our partners, and we're like I said, we're happy to be partnered with them, and we think they're great solutions. We don't partner with Spindustry. Very rarely partners with an organization that as a third party or someone who sells stuff, because we sell stuff. And we don't, it's not that we make money from a partnership. We picked these two partners because they had solutions that our clients needed. And that's very important for me to let you know about. We don't bring things to you that we just want you to purchase. We bring things to you that we know are going to be super value to you and that you will need. That's what both of these are. So you can contact Tara. Her email address is here, tharms@spindustrytraining.com, and her telephone number as well. And you can check out our website at spindustry.com. And we are just happy that everybody could join us today. And we thank you for participating. And I'll let Tara wrap up some things here. There's a couple of notes.
Yeah, they will be sending you out an automatic email will come out to you with the recorded session too. So you guys will have that on file if you would like to go back to it. And then we'll also just send up a follow-up email with the slides.
Awesome. All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.
I didn't see any questions.
Okay, awesome.
Unless anybody has any of you want to ask.
Yeah, if anybody has a question real quick, they can enter it in the questions. And we'll be on for a little bit after this as well. So we thank everybody for coming out today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a great and wonderful day.